Hello, Evgeny. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. And you?
Great. Thank you for asking. You've wanted to speak to me after listening to some of the conversations that I've had here on this channel
Yeah,
about what was it? Well, tell me. You tell us. I think it's best.
sure. So there was a conversation of you with a guest. I forgot his name. He was an Israeli from the States, I think, from the US, who I think the title was Jew who talked to thousands of Muslims, something like that.
Oh yeah, Moriel Barelli. Yeah, that's his name.
Okay. Yeah, so it was really interesting in my opinion. And I think you discussed the fact that many Muslims would not consider speaking to you on camera at least.
Yeah,
Mm,
unfortunately. Although I did speak to one. The video is not up yet, but by the time this conversation goes live,
mm,
the video of my conversation with a Muslim will be live. But I will tell you in advance, although our viewers probably already know this because they've watched the video. Uh, he agreed to talk to me,
mhm.
but he hid his face.
Okay,
So at least that's
understood.
something.
Mm. Yeah, I guess. Okay, I guess I would assume that his views on the conflict are somehow moderate, so that's why.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, please continue.
Yeah, and I think one point that was interesting for me in this conversation is that your guest hid his identity at least, or he like in the conversations with Muslims, I mean, he for his own safety, I guess, or for to make sure that the people are honest to him, maybe. And he said that he's just an American student who does some questioning about the conflict or the dynamics between Jews and Muslims or Israelis and Palestinians, whatever. Yeah, that was for me an interesting fact. And me as a Jew from Russia, living in Germany, who has like 90% of my friends since I moved to Germany were Muslims, and I get along with them. I would say way better than with Germans or Russians even. Um, uh, Maybe I have another perspective or another angle on this topic, so that's why I reached out to you.
Sure, I'd love to hear it. Maybe you could tell us what things did you take issue with about the things that my previous guest has said?
To be honest, not that much of an issue. I think many things that he said were right. For example, that people like the majority of Muslims, I would say, and Arabs also respect religious people, I would say, in general. So even if you are not Muslim, if you are, for example, a believing Jew or a believing Christian, they respect it more than if you have no beliefs or are an atheist or agnostic or whatever. That for me is a fact that, or is a thing that I would strongly agree on, from my experience, from
Yeah,
my
that's what
friends,
the
for example.
Quran says also, so it makes sense
Hmm.
that you would experience this. It goes
Hmm.
like this: it's the Muslims at the top, and then it's the Ahl al-Kitab, the people of the book,
Hmm.
which means Christians and Jews. And
Hmm.
then below that, it's the polytheists. Now, I guess the
Hmm.
Quran, I don't know what it says about atheists, but I can't imagine it's as good as the others. So I'll ask you like this way: what was it that made you? What was it about that conversation that made you want to reach out? Like because you said that you get along really nicely with Muslims and you're
Hmm.
openly Zionist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Which should make this a no go in some areas, right? But
Hmm.
apparently it doesn't. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, I don't introduce myself as, "Hello, I'm Evgeny the Zionist," but I'm
Yeah.
openly pro-Israel. More than half of my family lives there, and I'm there every year, at least once. And all my friends know it. Also, in Germany, it's common to, or at least in Germany here, it's common to ask where people are from. Oh, interesting. Your name is Evgeny. Where are you from? I never say I'm Russian or something, also because I don't consider myself to be Russian, and also the Russians don't consider me to be Russian. In my I don't know if you know it, but in Russia, when you are born, they state your nationality, and then my nationality in my certificate of birth is Hebrew. Yeah. So
Ivri in
yeah,
Russia.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yes, and so all people that I talk, I don't know, a bit more deeply in a conversation, they know that I'm a Jew, that I have friends or family also in
Can I
Israel.
ask why? Why do you go to Israel every year?
My family is there,
Oh,
like
okay.
more than half. Also, I like the country, and I like in my I see Israel as my the country of the origin of my people, and also therefore I have more patriotism towards Israel than to Germany, Russia, or any other
Okay, so
country.
I'd like to raise a few points
Sure,
about what you've just said. So,
sure.
number one,
Hmm.
that would be basically the common anti-Jewish complaint, right? Because they would say you're not loyal. You're loyal to world Jewry. Well, back in the beginning of the 20th century, they would say you're
Hmm.
loyal to world Jewry. Today, they would say you're loyal to Israel, or they would just
Hmm.
call it a Zionist, right? So you're
Hmm.
kind of treasonous, a kind of treasonous Jew. Okay, so that's the first accusation. The second,
Understood.
wait, just a second. Okay,
Hmm.
I'll let you reply to both. The
Sure.
second accusation would be, and that kind of correlates with the conversations I've had on this channel before, uh, it would be that I've heard several claims. I guess it depends on where the Muslims that you speak to are from, but I've heard several claims of what you've just said, that the origin of your people is Israel, right? The land of Israel.
Hmm.
That these are like the Israelites or the sons of Israel, if you translate it literally from Hebrew, Bnei Israel.
Hmm.
Also in
Hmm.
the Quran, the Muslims would say Banu Israel, right? The sons of
I know.
Israel. Many Muslims would say that the sons of Israel were in fact Muslims, and so it would be kind of incorrect for you to claim indigeneity to Israel.
Hmm.
So yeah, so what do you think about both of the things I've said? Right, it was number one,
Hmm.
right? You're not really indigenous. Number two, well, you're
Treason.
kind of a treasonous Jew. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the treason thing, because you mentioned it first. I think that would be more of a problem for a German nationalist when I'm living in Germany and are not and am not loyal to Germany but to Israel, for example. That it's not a problem for Muslims or Arabs
Oh
or
no, no, I didn't
anything.
say it's a problem for Muslims, but it's like this.
In general,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's in general. We just
Hmm.
see like this kind of almost new Nazis that are rising up.
Hmm.
Basically, you could see them online. I guess they're coming out
Yeah.
of their holes.
Hmm.
So
I would say there is, to be honest, there's some merit to it in or looking at it from this angle, because okay, I'm living in Germany, and most of my patriotic I would say feelings goes to Israel. That's not really I would say the kind of position that you would expect as a German from a person living in Germany. But I'm not, as long as I don't break any laws in Germany, I would say then that that's not a problem. But if I would be German, I wouldn't see that as the or optimal kind of German patriotic position. So there's some merit to it, I would say.
okay, and now while you were speaking, I actually thought, well, Um, you've helped me develop my thoughts that
Hmm.
the accusation is not just that you're disloyal.
Hmm.
It's that you're actively working to undermine your society, right? That was the
Hmm.
accusation against Jews during the days of the Weimar Republic in Germany.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So, and also, we're seeing more and more voices like that in the West today, That
Hmm.
it's not your treasonous. Well, if you're racist, you would say nature. If you're not racist, you would just say, well, treasonous tendencies,
Hmm.
right? Sentiment. Um, they cause you not just to not be loyal to your country, but to actively work to undermine it in order to, I don't know, achieve some sort of, I don't know, conspiracy goals.
Hmm.
But I guess that's going quite deep into the hole.
To be honest, I'm not sure what to say about that, but as long as we don't discuss like specific cases, it's hard to elaborate on that. But again, in general, I would say that if I say I'm more patriotic towards Israel than Germany or Russia, I could understand why um, some German nationalists, for example, have some objections to that.
Okay, so let's go on about the other part about well, are why do you see Israel as the place of origin of your people, and how
Hmm.
do your what do your Muslim friends think about that? If you've ever discussed
Hmm.
this with them.
Hmm. Yeah, I have. So why I think it, because as far as I understand, it's a fact. So the Hebrews, I would say, or the Jews. I mean, the Jews is just another name for the part of the Hebrew or Israelite nation that is um, left on earth today. Those are the descendants of one certain tribe of the Hebrews, who are mostly left today, as far as we know. But their origin was in the Levant, where now is Israel, and then they were conquered by several nations like the Assyrians and Babylonians and Greeks, and then in the end Romans. And then they were, after they rebelled and stuff, they were displaced and taken as slaves, for example, to Europe, to Rome, as far as I know. And from there they split to the north, to like the area of Germany, I would say, what Hebrews or in the Bible would be called Ashkenaz. And the others went down to Sfarad, which is the Iberian Peninsula, like Spain and Portugal. Yeah, that's the history as far as I know it. And I, for example, descend from the Ashkenazi part of the split. Yeah, and I mean, you can trace it with DNA testing and stuff.
Okay. By the way, I think it's interesting to note that, and you could correct me if I'm mistaken, but
Hmm.
the Russian word for Jew is ivri,
Yeah,
Hebrew, basically. Hebrew and
yeah.
Jew is the same thing in Russian, right?
No, in Russian it's like that. Еврей is a Hebrew, and that is
A person who
that
is Jewish.
no, that refers to the ethnicity, I would
Ah,
say.
okay.
And Yehudei would be the Russian translation of Yehudi.
The religion.
Yeah,
Okay. So tell me about your interactions with
with
your.
Muslim about that
Yes,
topic. Okay,
exactly.
so I didn't speak about this topic with Muslims or Arabs from other countries, but with those who are living in Germany. Okay, so that's maybe
Were they
a
born and raised in Germany?
me no, or
No,
they.
they.
Some of Most of them weren't. Some of them were born in Iraq, Albania, or Iran,
Okay, maybe later you could
Turkey.
tell us about the differences that you can, if you can spot
Sure,
any between
sure,
people
sure,
who, yeah.
sure. So yeah, most of them weren't born in Germany, but they took on some German perspectives, I would say. Uh, like in my opinion, as far as I understand, in Germany, most of the people, they don't see us as a people or as an ethnicity. They see us just as a religion. And I think that's the consequence of the fact that Hitler and the Nazis were separating between Germans and Jews so much based on the ethnicity or race or whatever you want to call it. And they want to, like ideologically, to separate themselves from that as far as possible. And so they say that Jews are people like us, just with another religion.
I'll
And
try to rephrase
mhm,
what you've said to make sure I
sure,
understand, and also for
sure,
for our listeners. So what you're
sure.
saying is in your estimation, that in your estimation, the German psyche, let's call it,
Hmm.
used to separate Jews and Germans, Jews and non-Jews, basically based on ethnic lines, and because Nazism as an ideology and as a worldview was so thoroughly decimated, now people only view Judaism as a religion and not as an ethnicity because it's considered bad to view something as an ethnicity now because of how thoroughly Nazism was defeated.
Yeah, or to kind of maybe have a certain distinctions for Jews, I would say, or in just in general, they want to to have a distance between their way of thinking and the ideology of the Nazis as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so they, like, I don't know, Hitler wore shoes, so I don't wear shoes now. Like, in some parts of it, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, or if there's some merit to it,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, and I think, or I think the majority of the Muslims living here, it's the same. So they see us as just a religion and not an ethnicity or a people or a nation. Um, like there is a nation of Israelis, but they don't see Jews as a people. That's what I
Do
mean.
you see
I'm
Jews as a people?
For sure.
Well,
I
I
think
guess you can't really be a religious Jew without seeing Jews as a people, in a sense, right? That's the
mm,
religion in a way.
to be honest, no. To be honest, I'm not that religious. Like, if I have tattoos and I don't really do Shabbat, and even the holidays and things. I think that is due to the fact that my parents lived in the Soviet Union
Mm.
for too long of a time, and they are also not religious. And for me, and for my parents, the Zionist part, or the blood flowing through our veins, and us being descendants of this ancient civilization, is way more important, or is in the focus of our minds more than the religion itself.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and just as I summarized the history of the Jews, that's why we are a people, a nation, an ethnicity, whatever. And for example, if you take Bukhari Jews from Uzbekistan, you can see it even more, the distinction of them, or yeah, between them and the population of Uzbekistan, the rest of the population, who look more like Asians, like Turks maybe, or Kazakhstan, Kazakhi people.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell there's a larger ethnic difference. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so move on. Move on with your story about the your
Yeah,
Muslim
yeah.
friends.
And also the Muslims here in Germany think the same way as the Germans. I'm not sure if it's also because of the context of the Holocaust, or it's in Muslim communities in other countries, if it's the same. I'm not sure about
I would
that.
say that it's
Mhm.
consistent with Muslim thinking
Maybe,
broadly, right? Because
maybe.
it shouldn't matter. Like in a way, Islam is an extremely anti-racist religion, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't matter at all your ethnicity. Doesn't matter
That's
at
right.
all.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Mm, yeah, and so in their mind, a Jew is, or someone who calls himself a Jew, does not refer to his ethnicity, but to his religion. And
Ah, okay. So that makes so much sense. This is why you cannot be. It doesn't matter if you're a descendant of the sons of Israel, right? Because your religion has been corrupted according to the Quran.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Also,
oh,
as I don't remember quite if you said it or your guest said it in the video that I watched, but you rightly said that they um, see, or they look at the Banu Israel in the Quran as Muslims, and also at Moshe, like Moses, as a Muslim, and also at Jesus as a Muslim, just from their definition of the word Muslim, who is
submitted to God
yeah, exactly, exactly. In
in the
that way,
proper way. Submitted to God in the proper way, I would say. I would add. Because you could say the Jews of today, they submit to God, right? But they do it in the wrong way according to the Quran, so they're not Muslims.
Yeah, but in because they do it in the wrong way, they are not submitted. But
Okay.
I mean the expression Muslim only means submitted to God, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
but it also is, but it also retains a monopoly on the definition of
for
submission.
sure,
So
for
yeah,
sure, for sure, for sure, yeah. But in that sense, they were Muslims, not in the sense that they believed in Muhammad or
yeah,
not.
it wasn't born. Yeah,
Exactly. Um, Yeah, so I don't think that is something that you could agree or disagree on. I'm not sure. That's just their way of thinking about it. That they followed the religion in the right way, and then it got corrupted in their view, and now they are not submitted to God in that definition or in their definition. But yeah. I think the disconnection from the ancient Israelites comes from the fact that they see us only as a religion and not as an ethnicity. And so when I, or in the beginning of a friendship with a Muslim or an Arab, I would always have to explain that thing. Or, yeah, I would always have to make sure that this misconception fades.
this is
In my
so
opinion, it's
interesting. Okay, listen, I'll tell you why my mind is being blown right
mhm,
now, because
okay.
I have also found that in my in my interactions with Muslims,
Hmm.
I get way better responses and way better relationships if I first clear this conception. Like
Hmm.
if I first make it sure. Did you know that that to us Jews, like we see ourselves as the descendants, as the people of Israel, and in fact we see ourselves as the people of Israel. We call ourselves this way to this day. We
Hmm.
call ourselves Am Israel even today,
Hmm.
right? So it's in your Quran. We are these people, and then they would say, oh, because according to us, you are not these people. And mostly, if they are Palestinians, additionally, they would say, we believe that you have nothing to do with these people, nothing,
For
absolutely
sure.
nothing to do with them.
Okay, I mean, for them, it's convenient to think that.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they do think that. Also, I mean, I can understand that they don't weigh so much into our history because it's also not beneficial to their narrative somehow. If I would be a Palestinian, I think I wouldn't search for a connection of the Jews of today to the area of Palestine.
I've read some historians of the Middle East, and apparently, Muslim scholarship, um, let's say, remarkably, does not concern itself with history outside of Islam. It does not concern itself with the history of the West, for example, whereby Western historians did concern themselves with the history of the Muslim world, although later people like Edward Said called them Orientalists and made it like a derogatory term. I
Hmm.
mean, they used to call themselves Orientalists, but then it became like a derogatory term because you're like Orientalism is like racism against the Oriental, like against the East.
Hmm.
But that's another story. So,
Hmm.
but tell me, why is it that you find that making this clear to people you know, Muslims that you know, why did you
Hmm.
find that it's so useful?
Because for me, this distinction is very important for my identity, and I think that it's just more coherent with the reality. Because I'm not really like I call myself a Jew. Why? I'm not really religious, but I am a descendant of a certain people, and also the I mean most of the other people in the world, I would say, make this distinction because for them it doesn't matter if we are religious or not. They make the distinction. Yeah.
But that's the reason that they make this distinction is because the Israelites, let's call them, have been instrumental in their view of history and in their grand narrative because of well, for them it's the Old Testament, for the Christian world, right? So everybody knows who the Israelites are, okay? But the Muslim narrative is so different that, you know, when you speak to Westerners, you're used to having this assumption of both of you guys knowing what a Jew means. You know, you assume that they know this. So, but when you speak to a Muslims, in many cases, your worldviews are so different that maybe you just need to make this alignment before you can even communicate on the same and have your terms mean the same things.
Yeah, for sure. That is a strategy in general, I think. When you have an argument, doesn't matter which topic it is, you first have to clear the first principles that you are coming from, kind of. But yeah, and what I wanted to add is that it also makes a connection between me and my fellow human, because I think also from the origin, we have more in common than what separates us, because we are both Semitic, in case of Arabs, for example, and maybe that's also why I feel myself more connected to Middle Eastern people than to Europeans. Maybe that's at least I don't know, an influence on
Well,
it.
the Jews are technically speaking, they're somewhere in between Christianity and Islam, right?
Probably, yeah,
Both
yeah,
geographically and
yeah,
genetically
yeah, for
and
sure.
linguistically, right? If you
Hmm.
were to say like, okay, so Hebrew is quite similar to Arabic,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
I understand so much Arabic from learning Hebrew.
yeah, but then again, if you were to like have, let's say, let's say that you imagine there was some sort of ancient Hebrew tribe. They spoke this
Hmm.
Levantine tongue, and then they got expelled into Europe, and they lived for a couple thousands of years in Europe. You would
Hmm.
expect them to speak a language which is uh, some kind of mix of Levantine and European, but and that's exactly what you get. That's basically Yiddish.
Jewish, Yiddish, yeah,
Yeah, that's
and also
exactly that.
yeah, also Ladino, or I don't know what is it called, Johuri. That's the Persian version of Yiddish.
Hmm?
Yeah, everywhere they go, that's also, I think, a hint that it's more of a people than a religion, because they take their language with them always,
Yeah, true. Well, it's the scripture because that's the language of the scripture, I guess.
for sure.
So, okay, so tell us more about your relationships with the Muslims. Wait, you know, I keep cutting you off because I keep finding interesting things to delve into.
Mm. The, I also, I don't know, that's the first interview I think I'm doing, knowing that it will go online. So I'm sure I'm missing thousands of facts that I wanted
Don't worry
to
about it.
mention. Yeah. So my relationship, yeah. Also, most of the Muslims that are my friends here, they are, I would say, religious. Like many of them, for example, pray 5 times a day, or they fast on Ramadan and things like that. But they are not that religious or fanatic, I would say, in quotation marks, that they try to convert people, for example, on random basis, on daily basis. They practice the religion for themselves and inside their family and stuff, things like that. Um, but I think most of the Muslims here in Germany are not that religious, to be honest. I think it's just an influence, and the fact that they call themselves Muslims. I think they are as religious in the Muslim sense as I am religious in the Jewish sense.
Culturally
Mm,
Muslim, you might say.
Probably, yeah, exactly. But many of my friends actually are b believers, I would say. Yeah, but it doesn't make so much of a problem. Also, the conflict, I spoke about it a lot in the beginning, like when I was, I don't know, 15 or 16. Also, when like I'm 34 now. In 2006, when I was 16, was the Israel-Lebanon war, for example. Then there was a huge problem with that, and was
In
trying.
Germany?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. In my city, especially because we have a really big Lebanese community. They are mostly, I think they are not Shiites. I think those are like Kurds from Lebanon, but they identify themselves as Lebanese people.
So what happened?
Mm, I mean, for example, I like a friend told me that some Lebanese people in one um, area of our city knew that I'm a Jew and my name, and but they didn't know how I look actually, but they wanted to, I don't know, find me and whatever, do something with me. Yeah, there
Really?
were for sure there were so many stories like that.
What happened? Okay, so let me take you a few steps forward. What
Hmm.
happened? Did anything change after October 7th?
Not, yeah, some parts I had many discussions. You have to understand that I was openly pro-Israel and openly Jewish all the way from the beginning. And so I had a filter really early on. So those friends that were okay with that stayed, and those people who were not okay with that didn't become my friends.
Okay, okay. So there were occasions in which you think you've met some Muslims and they've figured out that you're a Zionist basically, and they were like, okay, no, we're staying away
Oh,
from that.
for sure. There was, for example, I was in a shisha bar, hookah bar, Nagila bar, and there was a Lebanese person, the person from Lebanon. I think we were also like 15 or something like that. It was before the conflict, before the war. And when he asked me where I'm from, I said from Russia because that was at that time I didn't understand that or I didn't find it that important to say from the beginning that I'm a Jew or a Hebrew. And then he asked, "Oh, then you are Orthodox or Christian or something like that." And I said, "No, I'm Jew. I'm a Jew." And he was shocked. First, he thought it's a joke, and then I assured him that it was not a joke, and he said something like, I would have never thought that I would sit with a Jew at the same table or something like that." And then another friend of mine who was a Kurd and said, I'm also a Jew. What do you want to do?" Something like that. And we were kids, like teenagers, but he didn't look too happy about it and never spoke to me again. So, as I said, the filter was really strong from the beginning.
I've actually okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear because I've also had some quite similar experience with the Lebanese before. Uh, so it's interesting. I do wonder if Lebanon is relatively more hostile towards Jews than maybe other places. I don't know. Well, maybe other Muslim places, although there's substantial Christian population in Lebanon, of course. So
I
okay,
think now, certainly.
yeah, now for sure. So can you tell us what sorts of discussion did you have with your Muslim friends post October 7th?
Mostly about defining what a genocide is, for example, mostly comparing numbers of dead people, mostly of about the conflict itself and certain, mostly they don't start the conversation. Mostly they post something that I find appalling.
For
And
example,
for example, like a caricature of Gaza with walls around it, with a sticker of the Israeli flag with a swastika in it, something like that. And then I don't know, Benjamin Netanyahu shooting inside the area, something like that. I'm not quite sure how it
yeah, we
look
we
exactly.
get the picture though.
Yeah, like comparing Israel
Yeah,
with
very
Nazis.
very popular today.
Exactly. And yeah, for example, that story on Instagram, I answered to and said that I'm really disappointed and how, what, like, why, or what's the reason that you're posting that, and started the conversation and discussion and things. And then the person who posted it, he was an Iranian guy, but from Iraq. There's a on the border there are some cities that are intertwined. Anyway, and yeah, we had a whole discussion, and after that, many other discussions about similar things. And I wasn't really able to convince him, but despite that, he was on my wedding wearing a kippah and things like that. So even though it's a, I don't know, um, horrible um, story or horrible narrative to push to the world, I am hesitant to cut off ties to people.
Do you feel like it's different? It's different to be a Jew since October 7th? Well, in your life in Germany, or
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Because, for example, in Berlin, there have been occasions of swastikas or stars of David on houses of Jewish people, and the names written on them and things like that. So, like
yeah,
in the
like
Second
in
World
yeah,
War.
like before the second. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand. Okay, that's yeah, that's rough. So, what other tips do you have for me for well initiating conversations with Muslims successfully as a Zionist?
For initiating, that's hard to say.
Well,
The
not
the
just
problem.
initiating, you know.
Mm,
I'm not going into a bar looking for Muslim women to go try my pickup lines on, right? So, you know,
Sorry.
I guess you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I can tell you is that they, again, they respect um, loyalty on a friendship level. That's what I can say. That's what I also respect, and that's what we align on. They respect conservative views for sure, in general. That I can tell you. I'm not sure how it helps you to initiate conversations. Um, they for sure respect religious people in general also. Um, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure how to bring people or culturally Muslim or also religious people on, for example, on YouTube or something like that, because if they have moderate views, they wouldn't show their faces.
Yeah, that's what I've
If
experienced. Yeah,
yeah, because of fear, I guess. And even if they have, I would say, hostile views towards Israel, they also wouldn't, I
yeah,
think,
because
come
they
on.
wouldn't communicate with the Zionists because they are scared from both sides. Like,
Yeah, for
if you
sure.
come too close to an Israel, if you even talk to an Israeli, you're a traitor, and maybe
Yeah,
you're a
yeah,
Mossad agent, by the way. And
yeah.
especially if you're Palestinian, like
Mm,
these guys really suffer from that. I mean, they do it to themselves, but they, I think, okay, so many Palestinians are actually killed by other Palestinians for being suspected collaborators.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Also, for example, uh, Sinwar was called the butcher of no, of Khan Yunis
yeah,
because he killed Palestinians, not Jews, for example.
true. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah,
He was also convicted because he killed, I think, 10 Palestinians.
I think he terrorized them during his time in prison as well.
Also, that, yeah,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Okay, so is there anything else that you wanted to talk to me about during the that you thought about my previous conversations here that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, you asked your guest what we can learn from Palestinians or Muslims in general. I'm not sure what exactly the wording was, but I think that we can learn a lot from them, to be honest. Um, we also shouldn't forget our
Wait, what can we
I'll,
learn before what we shouldn't forget?
okay. I think that that we like I'm kind of a conservative person, okay? Even though I'm not that religious, but conservative in terms of I don't know, family dynamics, having many children, and I don't know, that kind of views. Also politics, I would say, in general. And I think that also um, hospitality, I in from yeah things like that, like cultural goods, I would say. Those we can learn from them for sure. And also, yeah, I think a really important point is having many children. I think doesn't matter if you're religious or not. I think Israel is doing quite a good job in that, as far as I know. I think 3 children per woman or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Why, yeah, why I think it's important, just to elaborate on that, because I think every person who have certain views, who has a certain, I don't know, ideology, if you want to call it, wants this ideology or this views to spread, because in that way the world, in his view at least, would become better. And I think that that is best done through children and the right education of your children. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, but I also think in terms of the conflict, we can't do much, to be honest. And one more thing that
Wait, why not? Why can't we do much? What do you mean by that?
because we have an uphill battle, because we try to protect our people and not and kill at as least as possible of their people, and they do kind of the opposite, to be honest. Like they are risking their people's lives by attacking Israel and wanting to kill as many Jews as possible. And in that way, it's I mean, the people of the world who are not that much connected to the conflict and don't look too deep into the details, they just see mm, um, the surface picture, I would say, and they don't dig into the details, because also they don't have a too deep connection to it. That's what I mean. And if they see one strong side where a few people are dying and one weak side where many people are dying, it's kind of clear for them, and why looking in more details.
Yeah,
So
so it's bad to be strong in a sense. Like
kind of,
it's kind
yeah,
of moral to be weak.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there is a, I don't know if you know Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a YouTube channel, as far as I know, and um, there's a video on that, why the left stopped supporting Israel after they got stronger.
You
Because
know, it's
in
actually, again, you caught me here. I really didn't plan for this, but I've actually just finished rereading The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand this week.
okay,
So
well,
I can definitely see like why would an institute based on Ayn Rand's philosophy would make a video with that title. So I can see it's the well for those of you who have read, like all 10 of you who read this book recently and remember, it's like the last speech that the main character gives in his trial, like whatever. Okay. Yeah.
I sounds interesting. I should read it. And yeah, I also think it's moral to be weak, and it's an uphill battle to be strong, to protect our people and things like that. I think the only thing that we can do is from like as a grassroots strategy, to make bonds with Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims in general, to understand them better, and that they get to know us. Because I think we are too afraid, to be honest, to do that. And I think I didn't, uh, I haven't got harmed, even though there was a big chance in all those years growing up here in Germany, because I didn't show um, weakness, I guess, and I was open-minded and went with open arms into conversations. And I think if if you get to know a person, it's harder to hate a person. So I think from a individual level, grassroots strategy like that, like getting to know individuals is the most thing that we can do. And from governmental level, like centrally planned level, the only thing that the government can do is what they do now, kind of, especially in the last few months. I don't know, like protecting the citizens and yeah, pre or preparing the borders, security measures, and things like that. And I think it will take a long time for this conflict to go down in heat.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And I also agree about the part of making connections. Um, I think actually the people don't understand just how different the narratives are.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
that kind of goes hand in hand with what we've spoken about earlier about how the Jews are perceived as well. The way the Jews perceive themselves and the way the Christians perceive the Jews is completely different than how the Muslims perceive it. Because if you're a Muslim and you're basically a religion that rejects ethnicity in a way,
mm,
the
mm.
importance of ethnicity, then they don't really care. Like when you say I'm Jewish because I'm descended from, who cares as a Muslim? Like, it's
Mm.
racist to care in a sense.
Also, yeah,
You know,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, but you're a racist. Israel is a racist colonial state. Did you forget?
Yeah, for sure.
No, seriously, that's the reasoning behind it. And I find that the narrative is so different that when you talk about that, there can be, there's understanding. And I've also noticed then that their narrative about October 7th is completely different.
For sure.
Like when I tell a Palestinian about some things that Hamas did, I'm shocked that they have no clue about this. Absolutely no idea that
Also,
Hamas
they don't
went.
believe it.
Well, okay, yeah. So it's true that like in the West, here's the thing: in the West,
Hmm.
they can't not hear it, so they hear it and they don't believe it,
Hmm.
right? But in the Arab world and in the Palestinian territories, they don't hear it because they're not exposed to Western media, so
Mm, sure.
they don't hear it. And when I speak about this, they usually go like, you know, they're like, no, that's against Islam. Are you sure? Like I've gotten this response many times. Like
Mm,
there's no way they did this because Hamas is an Islamic movement and this is against Islam. So it's impossible that they did this. Are you
mm,
sure that they did this? And then like, whoa, I can't believe they did this.
mm.
This is the response.
I think one more point to, or one more fact to the point that it's an uphill battle and we can't do like too much about it is the definition of, or yeah, the definition kind of the word propaganda. I mean, it's thrown around a lot, but what propaganda is in the first principle um, way, I think, or in my opinion, as far as I understand it, is repeating an information, doesn't matter if true or not, as many times as possible, so it sticks in the mind. I think who said it? I'm not sure. Some German propagandists from the Nazi era, as far as I remember, that if you tell a lie enough times, then it becomes the truth. And the problem is that just Jews are 0.2, I think, percent of the world, and we can't repeat narratives often enough. So I think the narratives of other people will win.
Yeah, that's something I'm worried about. Definitely, I can see as I've said, that the narratives are very different, and I can see the sort of anti-Western narrative taking over in a sense.
Also that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of. One more story maybe. In the gym, I was training and I had clothes of Jewish Jewish football club on me, Maccabi Frankfurt, and a guy started a conversation with me, who looked also Middle Eastern and things. And he asked me, since when is there a Maccabi in Frankfurt, which is a German city? Isn't there only Maccabi Tel Aviv or Haifa or whatever? And then I told him that it's a Jewish German sports club, things like that. And then I asked him how he know about it. And then he told me I'm a Palestinian. And from the vibes, I understood that he's not uh, too too friendly, let's say, and too happy to see someone wearing stuff like that. But then the conversation, I would say, calmed down because I didn't show fear, I guess. I think that's an important point in conversations like that. And then we talked also about the conflict, and he was with a friend who was also Palestinian and who, for example, told me that he was in Israel with the German passport, and they let him wait on the airport, and that was so bad, and things like that. Mm, we talked about really many things, and I would say as a summary that they see Israelis somehow in their head as monsters who like to cause harm and cause death and I don't know what. And then I like one of the things that I wanted to give him on his way and to tell him is that I am a patriot somehow of my people and therefore of Israel. And I want my children to live there in peace. And I hope that his children also can live there in peace. So we should stop seeing each other as some kind of monsters that are thirsty and want to kill the other person. And it's just not reality and not logical in the end, because in the end, on a individual level, the people have different problems. They want to, I don't know, their children to go to school or make more money or like a normal life, I would say. Um, yeah, that was one thing that they have to get away from the idea that we are some kind of monsters or Israelis are some kind of monsters that want the death of Palestinians. I don't know. That's one thing. And the other is the other things that I told them or him is that he's not he's not doing enough self-criticism and he needs it more than me because most of my friends are Muslims and the propaganda doesn't catch me as much because the narrative in the world is kind of anti-Israel more, and also especially the narrative also in my surroundings, I would say.
Wouldn't
Although
he
my
say the opposite though? That the
the
narrative
Jews
is
control the media, you mean?
not necessarily, but that the narrative is anti-Palestinian more than it's anti-Israeli.
Mm, I would say mm, I'm not sure what he answered to that, to be honest. But what I said was that the Ummah, like the Muslim community,
Yeah.
is without hesitation for or pro-Palestinian, and also the left is without hesitation pro-Palestinian, and they are getting also because they are the weak, um, I would say, part of the conflict. They are getting so much support and compassion and things like that. And that is why he needs critical thinking even more than me, because I'm getting more different opinions and I have to check my own opinion more. Or yeah, I don't have a
Oh, so basically
uh,
you're saying he lives in a sort of an echo chamber.
kind of yeah in a bubble more than me because okay, many Jews are living in the Jewish bubble. Maybe for them it's the same situation as for him, but I don't. Like I speak to mostly to Muslims, so
No.
I I think that I have a better starting position.
Okay, Evgeny, thank you so much for talking to me.
Was a pleasure.